Welcome to Dees Talk. Today I speak with Bruna De Paolo, a neuroscience-based executive and team coach and speaker. She combines neuroscience and psychology to help leaders solve real-world challenges, navigate career transitions, and design healthier, more human company cultures. She's given a TEDx talk, and her client list reads like a who's who of global brands: Google, HSBC, Lego, Meta, Visa, Warner Bros., American Express, and many more. Today we speak about what it feels like to feel alive at work and how can everyone achieve that, what it means from a brain perspective, and why is it so important to sustain high performance and well-being. We then talked about what happens in the brain when we feel stressed and how this impacts our communication and collaboration. What to do when you're dealing with people who are stressed in order to create the best possible outcome. We speak about what it means to have an insight and how to make the most of them. What you as a leader must know about the brain for your own safety and for your own legal responsibilities. We speak about turning poison into medicine and how can we turn negative situations into positive ones and come up with solutions when all everyone is seeing is the problem. We speak about how to create an environment where everyone naturally performs at their best so that you as a leader can lead better. It's a fascinating conversation with many outcomes that I will take and implement in my own life, and I hope you will enjoy it as much as I did. Let's get to it. Welcome, Bruna.
Thank you so much, Darius. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here today. So you combine neuroscience with leadership and coaching. How did that journey begin for you?
Thanks for asking, Darius. It's a very interesting question because it's been a very weird, unplanned journey. It all started with the wrong career. I was in a career that I considered wrong in my previous life. I was in tech. I was working, let's say, in web development. That's where I was in Italy. I'm Italian, so I was working in Rome. Everything was fine from the outside, but I was very unfulfilled and unhappy, professionally wise, inside. So I think that the journey actually started from there. So to cut the story short, I tried many times to change my career because I just couldn't stand the idea that every day was kind of the same. You know, when you're in the rat race and you move every day, you're always there. And the fact that I knew what's going to happen today, what's going to happen next week, and how's going to next Monday look, it was just too much. I always had the feeling life could be more, should be more. Is it all here? That's what prompted me to consider leaving Italy and coming to London, because in Italy, changing career at that time, and we're talking about 2012, it wasn't really an option. So I said, I'm going to go to London. Maybe they have a more open mind there, and I can probably find a better career. Like, how am I going to change my career if my CV tells the story that I've always been in tech? So I moved here and I ended up in tech again because, of course, I didn't change my mindset. But I was right in thinking that being surrounded by people who think differently and are more open to the idea of change, it could help. So to cut the story short, after a few years and lots of mistakes, I managed to find my calling. And I realized that there was this thing called coaching. That was exactly who I was. It's not just what I liked, it's who I am. And that was a huge revelation because I realized the right career for you, which is what I was looking for, is not about what you like or what you're passionate about. It's about expressing yourself. What career will allow you to express yourself? And that's the meaning of feeling alive at work. And that's what I was looking for.
And that's not what you like and what you're passionate about?
This is a consequence. Of course, you like it. And most of the time, you're also passionate about this, of course. But it's different. If you start by looking for the right career for you, by what you like or what you're passionate about, you might take the wrong way, which is exactly what I did. So let me tell you, this might derail a little bit from your answer, but I'll get there. But let me tell you what I mean here. The only reason why I survived for so long, about 17 years, in the wrong career, wrong for me, of course, because it was a great job, great colleague, great salary, everything was great, which makes it even worse. Because at that point, it becomes like a golden cage, which is much more difficult to leave. If it was a horrible place, it'd been easier. But leaving something that works so well, Your identity is connected to that. It gives you a certain lifestyle. Leaving for something that is a question mark, because not even you know what you want to do or what you're supposed to do, it was a terrifying thought. But luckily, the unfulfillment was so strong that it prompted me to get out. So to answer your question, big part of the problem was I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what else I could do. The only thing I had at that point was my CV. It was just too little because my CV said a very specific story. So out of the blue, after a few years of this unfulfilling but good life, I'm so glad of this, completely out of the blue, I discovered I had a passion I knew nothing about. I had no idea that I was so passionate about contemporary history. Just like, whoa, it was a revelation to me. So I started studying. I enrolled university, I think I was 26, 27 probably, just for passion, okay? I wasn't thinking about starting a career on that because in Italy, for as weird as it might sound, you don't do much with a degree in history. So I would just say this will make me fulfilled. The problem arrived when I graduated in 2012. And when I finished, it was March, I felt lost because for 7 years, I managed to sustain the unfulfillment thanks to the passion and the fulfillment that studying was giving me. But when this was removed from me because I graduated, I felt the whole heaviness of being in an unfulfilling career. So the option was either I enroll university again, but is this smart? That's what I was asking myself. Isn't it better if I find something that during the day makes me feel that way? So that's the moment where I decided to come to London. And because the only passion I had was history, I said, that's what I need to do. I love it so much. So I invested in a master here as well in contemporary history, and I wanted to be a historian.
Right.
And I was so swayed by the fact that this is my passion, so this is what I need to do. Because everyone tells you, find a job that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And I find it very misleading. Because if you're like me, you might be multi-passionate about so many different things. How do you choose which one is worth investing?
Yeah.
So I decided to invest in that one, and of course I was wrong. But the key here is, how did I realize that I was wrong? It's because by studying, I also thought that the master could be a bridge to enter into that world. And I tried, and every door seemed closed for me. And I couldn't really connect, but I really wanted. So I kept going. So it wasn't working. So I was constantly complaining. And one day I complained with the right person. She's a professor at King's College of History. And we became friends. And she said, Bruna, can I tell you? I was complaining, why is this not working? I gave so much to this. And she said, this job is not for you. I got furious. I couldn't believe what she said. She said, this job is simply not for you. And I said, well, why? I'm so passionate about this. And she gave me an epiphany. She said, Darius, look at you, Bruna. With this energy, with your character, how could you stay in an archive in silence, alone, all day, every single day? You're just not going to sustain it. Wow. She was so right. A slap in the face would have been less hurtful.
Right.
But to be honest, she was so right. And I understood in the moment, from the feeling I had in my body, something big is happening here. So in that moment, she told me what became my philosophy of life, and especially my job as a coach in helping people feel alive at work and create environments where employees can feel alive at work. The right career for you is not the one that you're passionate about. The right career for you is the one that leverages who you are, what you bring into the world. So the reason why I was so unfulfilled when I was working in tech, it's because, of course, I'm a highly energetic person. I have certain gifts, like empathy, for example. It comes very natural to me. But all this wasn't needed, neither in tech nor in history. So I was doing things that I could do, things that I liked, things that I was passionate about, but none of these two things was tapping into who I am as a person. So after so many years working in tech, what happened is I turned into a human doing. I was no longer a human being.
Right.
Because I couldn't express who I am. I had to close it into a drawer because it could have been a problem in an environment where your job is being in front of a laptop all day. So in that moment, I realized all these and I said, wow, This is changing my whole perspective of what it means working, having a career, making choices, being authentic. So what I did in that moment when I recovered, because it wasn't easy, it was a tough moment, I realized I should stop looking at my CV and I should just look at who I am. I should look inward, rediscover everything I bring into the world, what comes natural to me. If my energy is a problem, being a historian, who's going to pay for that energy? There must be someone else who's going to leverage that. So my job is to discover who I am, bring it to the world, and then see which one is happy to pay for that, because there must be someone who can benefit of this energy.
So who you are is more about how you behave on a day-to-day basis. So how do you want to spend your day? That's quite an important question to ask, right? Because being a historian, your day, as you said, is going to be in the archives, in the libraries, very isolated. And why that was a mismatch was because your energy was more social, you're more extrovert, want to connect with people, and that was not happening in either the IT or the historian. So you would ask people then, first of all, how are you in terms of, do you want to be interacting with people all day, or would you rather be, because some people like to be isolated, right? So is that more like, how do you get to who you are?
Exactly.
Right.
It's about rediscovering who you are. At that time, I think I was 35. Who am I today? I might be a different person from when I decided to go into that career. So who am I today? And because of course I started doing research and studying, this is generally my approach to things. I started reading so many books. And what I realized is that the right career for you is the one where you can express yourself.
Sure.
There's only one thing, and this again has to do with the brain. We'll tap into that later on. There's only one thing that makes us feel alive. And feeling alive is not being happy. Feeling alive is way more, because happiness tends to fluctuate. Okay,
Right.
good boss, good salary, bad salary. That's not what I was looking for. I was looking for that thing that when you wake up in the morning, no matter what happens, you know what to do and you are there because that's your element. And that's where you feel alive.
So you feel natural, you feel
Exactly.
yourself, you don't have to put on a mask for anybody.
At all.
You're
Or trying
just,
to look good or study a lot because you want to catch up with your colleagues.
yeah.
None of that. When you are in your element, you can count on your intuition being a huge part of what you do. Because you are in your element, you naturally feel confident. And when you feel confident and you're not self-threatening your brain enhances its function. So what that means is that when you feel alive, because you are in your element and because you are expressing who you are, you naturally perform better. And these also have a scientific explanation, which I'll be happy to give later. But the point is, the step is not looking at the CV, not even looking at what you're passionate about. It's about who am I? Making a proper list of all the things that you bring into the world. And that is definitely your gifts. It's a core part of this. But there's also your values, your vision, your mission, your ideas, your perception of things. It's all that makes you you. And this is a beautiful journey because it brings you back to life, not just in your career. You start making more authentic decisions because you know that your decision is not based on just pros and cons, which normally is a cognitive response.
Sure. Logical, adding up lists of, yeah.
Which is what we normally do. And it's not a coincidence that many of us working in the corporate world were kind of detached from who we are, because that's the life that we live.
There's a big separation between work and home life. But you're saying to actually reintegrate, just work out who you are and let that be your career.
Guidance.
Yeah.
So make decisions based on who you are, because this will allow you to be alive, to feel alive. And if you feel alive, your brain works better, you will naturally perform better, and you have many more chances to earn more.
So how can people find out who they are in terms of what career fit that would be?
So,
and how does that relate to neuroscience?
This is really interesting, because when I started as a coach, I'll complete the story later, but to cut the story short, at one point I became a coach, but I didn't know what to do, to be honest. I didn't have experience, and I was competing with so many other coaches who had 10, 15 years of experience. I was lost. So the only thing that I knew really, really well is exactly that, how to change career and how to find a career that makes you feel alive. So I decided to invest the first few years of the business in that. So I was helping people, and I developed this framework of 4 steps that helps people move from a career that is meh, so, to a career that makes them feel alive and earn more money. Because let's be honest,
So
there's an
feeling
elephant
like,
in the in
yeah,
the
of course,
room.
everybody wants to earn more.
Or at
And if
least
you can
not
do
less.
if you can do it, doing something you're loving authentically yourself, that's the best. And I think all of society would be lifted if everybody was pursuing what they were naturally gifted to do, right?
Exactly.
So, right, okay. So you'd ask them to ask themselves questions first. That's the first step.
So this framework is based on first step. And the first, of course, is ignore the CV. The CV is really the last thing you want to look at, really, in this type of journey. The first step is ignore everything else, even what you're passionate about, and rediscover who you are today. Rediscover who you are today so that you reconnect with your being, because the objective is to live and work again as a human being, no longer as a human doing. So, of course, the first step is to look inside that. So I developed a workbook, a masterclass, several tools to help people reconnect with themselves. And most of the time, when they do this journey, they say, wow. It also gives you so much more confidence, knowing who you really are, kind of scientifically, because you see it on paper. It's not just who you think you are.
See.
So because you do the job, then you see it. And you know that what happens very often, especially in the corporate world, is that you climb a mountain. It's called the first mountain, because you know how it works. You go to school, then you become a teenager, you have to get good grades. Then the normal understanding in the Western world is just find a good partner, get your degree, find a great job, buy a house, get married, have a child, and then run. Run. So since when you're a teenager, you're just running.
Yeah.
That's the moment where human beings start being detached from, who they are, and they become who they are supposed to be.
Yeah.
Fine, no one is going to die because of that. But there's a huge loss in here, because that's the moment where we become human doing. You just have to run and go. And then you arrive at some point where you've done the big things and you kind of settled. Kids, family, job, reputation, money, kind of settled, which normally happens around 35, 40. That's the average when clients then come to me. And that's the moment where they start questioning and they look back and they say, well, I did so much. But the question is where was I?
Yeah.
Where was I in this journey?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of pressure, to choose your career from a standpoint where people aren't that informed about who they are and about what even options there are in the real world, because they often have to choose their GCSEs that will supposedly feed into their A levels, that will feed into their university degree choice, which supposedly feeds into their career, which they're choosing when they're 15 and they've been in the educational bubble their whole life. So they haven't really been out into the real world, into the workplace. They haven't been, often they don't have experience of those vibes of the workplace, which can feed back into quite a lot to who we are. Like, you might go and pursue law and think that's what you want to do, and then you get to the law office and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to be just reading these law cases all day. Is that the way you want to spend your days? So I think people are a bit cut off from the workplace. I would recommend people get involved in the workplace from as young as possible, bring back that connection of the workplace with the education. So it's not just a separate funnel education, then you pop out the end of it and now you're ready for the workplace. There should be a bit of back and forth. So do apprentices as young as possible, even if it's doing the most basic tasks, just so you get to be in the workplace environment to have a feel if you like that or not. And I totally agree also with what you're speaking about, this kind of heavy implicit programming, which we all follow, right? So we all follow the programming of get your degree, or finish school at least, pursue a career, get married, have kids, get a mortgage, and then there's not really much programming after that. So it makes sense what you're saying, that people reach 35, 40, because that's after that, then it's just raise the kids and wait to die or to retire, right? Which is
Terrified of this idea,
quite,
but
which is
yes.
why people end up, maybe feeling unfulfilled. They blame it on the partner. Oh, this is why I'm not happy. Get a divorce. 1 in 2 marriages ends up in a divorce. All these things start to happen, and then people start to question. So if we could anticipate those questions earlier, so get them into the teenagers, then prevent the sort of later having to do it, that I think would be ideal. Have you dealt with any school kids with your
No, I'd love
training
to.
yet, or no?
I'll start doing some talks, but actually that's more about the brain of teenagers. So I'll start
Okay.
working with schools, private schools here in London soon, but it's a slightly different angle, although I'll try to put this in because the two things are related. It's not because we are talking about feeling alive, we're not talking about the brain. Let me tell you something. So I start connecting also with your
Sure.
question, how did you get there? And what it means doing what I do in terms of job. When I say feeling alive, it's a feeling, of course. And
It's
it's
like
much
feeling
more.
excited about what you're doing, or what,
Yes.
stimulated and
Yes, it's a lot
thinking.
of things, and it very much involves also the state of flow. You might have heard of the state of flow. It's a
yeah,
very common concept, and that's when you lose sense of time and space because you're
sure,
so involved in what you're doing, slightly challenged. It's a beautiful state. Every human being is capable of being in that state, and actually we did. We just don't notice it.
sure.
When it happens, the best thing that we can do is ask ourselves, okay, today I felt actually 2 hours in the state of flow. What was I doing? What was triggering that state? And I tell you what was triggering that state. If you are in that state, it's because you are expressing yourself, which means you're probably in that activity, you're using something that you bring into the world. Most likely those gifts of values of vision that we were saying before is that triggers that state of flow. Being slightly challenged on something where you can express yourself so you don't feel necessarily excited, but you feel alive. And that's where time flies away.
Sure.
And that's how you want to work. You don't want to work as I used to do, that you look at the clock, it's 3, and then after 2 hours, you look back and it's still 3:30.
Yeah.
That was horrible. A
Clock
horrible way to
watchers.
live.
Yeah.
So what that means from a brain perspective is that in that moment, you feel in that way. What makes you lose sense of time and space is the release of dopamine that you are releasing. So being
okay.
in the state of flow triggers, on top of others, the release of dopamine. Dopamine is responsible for what time is it? Oh gosh, is that late?
Right.
When you win, when you're excited, you don't have perception of how much time is passing.
Sure.
That's because of dopamine. So when you feel alive, you release, because of what triggered it, and what triggered it is self-expression. The fact that you're expressing some of your gifts has triggered that state. What happens in the brain is that you're releasing some of those neurotransmitters, which are also hormones, a specific balance of those, which is a little bit of dopamine, a little bit of adrenaline, a little bit of endorphin, and so on. That specific balance, is exactly the same that you can find in the brain of a person during their peak performance.
I see.
You know what that
So
means?
it's like a cocktail of
It's like a cocktail, a neurochemical
neurochemicals.
cocktail.
Right.
Now, this is really important, Darius, because feeling alive is a beautiful concept. But companies need to know about this because it's not just beautiful and pleasant. It's vital for sustainable high level of performance. Now, the fact that when I feel alive, I release the same balance that people have in their peak performance is telling us that when I'm in that state, I'm much more likely to perform at my best.
Be more productive, produce better work, all of that.
Now, that's why companies, if they're smart, they should invest in creating that type of environment because you pay people a full salary.
Yeah.
What you want in return is a fully functioning brain.
Sure.
But it's your job as an organization and as a leader to create the conditions for this to happen.
So you want to create optimal flow state conditions for all the company participants from beginning when they turn up in the morning until they leave. ideally be in flow state the whole time.
That's not possible, but that's the idea. Is you as a company and you as a leader, my perspective is it's your responsibility to create an environment, not just when they feel good, when they are healthy. This is nothing to me. It's an environment where people can truly be alive. If they feel alive, they perform better and they increase their well-being. The two things are strictly related. Now, smart companies invest in this type of approach because they understood the value of this connection. While many other companies, they still have the idea, old style leadership, performance or well-being, like the two things.
Yeah.
But if you know how the brain works, you understand that the two things are merged, and then you get two, in Italy we say, due piccioni con una fava, you get two birds, but just one nut, seed. I don't know how to say this in English. So you see the point?
Two birds with
Feeling
one
alive.
stone, they say.
How do they say it?
Well, they say you get two birds with one stone.
One
but
stone, yes.
It's killing. But
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
Well, killing, no, maybe. But you see the point.
Yeah.
So the whole question here is, what makes me as an individual feel alive? Well, I don't know, but you do. What we don't know is how to find this answer. I talk like the Bruna of many years ago, 10 years ago, before I switched, and I understood all that. If you ask me, what makes you feel alive? I would have said, I don't know, playing tennis. I was a motorcyclist, so going with my motorbike. I mean, I would have said the things that I like. Concept of aliveness, it wasn't there. So first mistake, not focusing on the real answer to the right question. The second point is, if you ask me, okay, I explained what feeling alive means. What are your gifts? We said self-expression. So, of course, you want to find a career where you express naturally your gifts. You get paid to be who you are. I mean, bingo.
Sure.
If you ask me, or when I ask my clients, okay, what are your gifts? I'm a good speaker. I can negotiate. I can build website. No. Those are skills.
Okay.
The problem is because of that, the human doing way of climbing the first mountain, we've lost touch with who we really are and what comes natural to us, and therefore is what would make us feel alive. So the question is, how do I help them identify what their gifts are?
Right.
Because there's a lot of confusion because people think that singing, dancing, painting is gift. If I don't have them, I'm not gifted.
Yeah.
No, you are. You have plenty. You just don't know them because you haven't been anyone else. So you don't know that the things that come natural to you don't come natural to others. So you don't recognize them as gift unless you're Mozart, and then you probably know it. So the question is, how often do you take time to check how you feel and how you respond to things? Similarly to what we said about the state of flow. You know that you're in the state of flow if you notice it. So you have to develop that awareness that makes you notice, oh, wow, I'm in the state of flow. Yeah. And then you have to have a framework to help you identify what triggered it and what were you using when you ended up in that state. So that's how you discover. This is just one of the exercises that you can use to discover your gifts. Like, look at when you are in the state of flow. What gift of yours are you using in that moment that is triggering that?
Sure. And that could be anything.
It can be anything, but you need to investigate like a little Sherlock
yourself,
Holmes,
yeah.
Because you might take too many things for granted. If I ask a client right now, how many gifts do you have? 3, 4, 5. No, you have plenty more, at least 30. You just don't recognize them. I give you an example. One gift I had, but I didn't know. One was empathy. I didn't know. Many other people. Today is very visible, but at that time, I didn't know that not everyone is empathetic. I don't know what I don't know.
Sure.
As much as a non-empathetic person doesn't really know what we mean by feeling other people's feelings. If they don't know. Many things I didn't know about myself, but one of these is my brain has an ability, very easily, to connect the dots. You told me something 3 months ago, we meet today, we will meet in another 2 months. When we speak, you tell me something, I'm able to... And then you say, wow, I never thought about that. So that's a gift of mine. I didn't know, that other people don't. How do I know this? Observe. Observe yourself. Try to understand on a daily basis, firstly, what comes natural. Secondly, what feeling do you feel in that moment when you do that things that comes natural? And if you tend to succeed, because if you're gifted at something, you naturally tend to succeed, or at least faster than others. You too can connect the dots. But probably for you, it takes a little effort, or maybe not. Maybe we share the same gift. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, pay attention, because this is the framework. And actually, I'm happy to share this, so this can be helpful for the listeners.
Sure.
If you're now questioning, how do I know? How do I discover my gifts? Well, this is the framework that I discovered while doing this work for so many years. Everything that check 3 boxes, if it checks them, it's a gift. Don't ask yourself, oh, was it an innate gift, or is it something I acquired? Who cares? Does it come natural to you? Do you feel alive, great, energized when you use it? And do you tend to succeed when you use it? Bingo.
Gift.
If you check, it is.
Yeah.
Who cares? I tell you another thing. I give you an example. There's something that I do very naturally today, but I wasn't born with it. I wish I would have had a much easier life. I'm Buddhist, and I met Buddhism in 2005, 2006.
You became a Buddhist.
Yes.
Right.
And it's Japanese Buddhism. It was a huge revelation. That's a whole nother story. But there's one thing that really taught me, and slowly I made it mine so much that today is a natural gift. And that is the ability to turn poison into medicine.
Mm.
And I do this with what happens to me. And of course, I live a much better life today. And I see this in others as well. I see immediately the opportunity in whatever bad is happening to them. So was I born with this? No, I wish so. I learned this from many years of practicing Buddhism. Today is so natural. So does it come natural to me? Yes. Do I feel great when I engage with this? Oh, yeah. Do I tend to succeed? Oh, yes. My life is so much better.
Right.
It's a gift.
So you turn everything that's potentially negative or a crisis into an opportunity, or where's the upside in this? Where's something positive to be taken from it?
Well, poison is medicine.
Yeah.
It depends on how you calibrate things. But it's a mind shift I had to do if I wanted to embrace that philosophy. I mean, it naturally, slowly.
Yeah, no, it's a habit. I think it works both ways. Like people that can turn bad situations into good, and people that know how to turn good situations into bad. Like always find the problem with the situation. You know, that's also like a sort of mental practice and habit, and then it becomes automatic as well.
It becomes automatic.
Yeah.
So what's the point of questioning innate, oh, what was I born with? Who cares? What is important is now, at your age, what check these 3 boxes. And you want to do this and keep in a note. You don't keep things in your mind because they get easily lost. Just write down what you think your gifts are, what you notice what your gifts are. You want to have a sort of a tracking system. You know, another gift of mine is like my brain is very structured. Everything has to have a container, otherwise it's lost. So you want to have a tracking system that shows you consistently the patterns. It's not because today I cooked carbonara
Yeah.
and I was so good at that and I felt alive. Of course I felt alive, especially when I ate it, that I am gifted at that. It's the consistency in the patterns that I reveal when I keep track of what makes me feel alive. So the key is in the patterns, not in that one-off thing that you did and you felt great. So when you see the patterns, you start creating a map of yourself and you say like, wow. And as I did, it was a no-brainer why I felt so unfulfilled in tech. Again, everything was looking so great. For my friends, I was crazy, wanting to change a career that was giving me so much. Yeah, but the 2 things don't match. That career doesn't tap into all these things that come natural to me.
I see. All these other gifts were
Exactly.
just dormant, basically.
Exactly. Another gift of mine, to answer your initial question a few jumps ago, you asked me, how did I end up doing this job as a neuroscience-based executive and team coach? It's because in that stage, painful stage, I've learned to really look and got into the habit of noticing what comes natural to me. So when
It's like a mindfulness exercise, right? It's
It
it's
is.
to be aware of
It
what's
is.
happening in yourself,
Exactly.
in your own thoughts, feelings, and physical reactions to
It's
things.
the habit of observing and the ability to interpret, which comes through the writing. Again, don't keep things in your mind.
Oh.
Write it down, speak out loud. I have amazing friends. They are my biggest blessing in life. The fact that I talk so much and so deeply and thoughtfully with them, I mean, the more I speak, the more I reinforce the habit, and I see things that I wouldn't even see, not even if I write. So speaking out loud with good friends, it's just another way to discover your gifts, because you talk about what you did naturally today, why that thing went so well, and then you reveal it and you want to take notes. If you don't write it down, it's lost.
So that's why journaling is a very useful tool as well to get things out of your brain, right? Because when
Definitely.
it's in the brain, it can be a bit jumbled and hard to define and really
is.
understand everything
But
that's going on with
journaling,
you.
if I may, Darius, it is a wonderful tool for those who are used to it.
Right.
For those who are not, and many of my clients come from finance, banking, big CEO, no time, they get lost.
No time for therapy, no time for journaling, no time for
Like, a good idea,
meditation.
Bruno, I'd love to, but
Hey.
the problem is they don't know what they're supposed to do. If they're not in touch with their inner world, they don't really know. So very often they turn a journal into a diary. And that, unless you want to write your memoir, it's not helpful.
Right.
Diary, you know what you did today. That's not the point. The point is getting into the habit of exploring the emotions, the reactions, your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, what triggered that behavior, what belief fueled that decision or that action. But let's be honest, if you haven't done any inner work, it's not that just because someone told you that you should journal, that you know how to do it. Which is the reason why I have a free resource on my website, which I'm happy for people, for the listeners, if they want to download it, that is a guided journal. The solution to that is not a white page in front of you, but at least for the beginning, then they will get into the habit. You want to have a list of questions, kind of, how alive did you feel today? Like 1 out of 10. 3. Okay, what was missing? Or if it's 7, what was making that a 7? What were you doing in that moment? Or did you have an insight today, an intuition? What were you doing when you were doing that intuition? What that intuition means in the wider picture of your life? Questions like these help you learn the habit, the skill of journaling.
So you're not just getting away from diary, like explaining what's happened, more into how you felt and what was going on during that moment. Yeah.
It's about exploring your inner world. Everyone has an inner world. We don't really take the time, especially because of the smartphone. If I'm queuing at the post office, I take the smartphone. It's like a candy for my brain.
Yeah.
It's a poisonous candy because in that moment, you could actually shut this down and focus on your inner world. Like, what emotions did I feel this morning? What triggered that? I got angry with my colleague, John.
Right.
What is exactly that made me angry? What do I think is the real problem? But we get so much distracted by the bombardment from ads and anything else, and especially the smartphone is the worst enemy of this inner work because we don't have the time.
It
But
fills
actually, we do
every
have
gap.
the time.
Yeah.
But if we feel it with Instagram and TikTok, and I get it, sometimes I get trapped as well. It's just so fun and it's relaxing.
Yeah.
But there's a big price that we pay every time we relax on Instagram.
That's hitting your dopamine, right? So
Firstly,
you
it
mentioned
messes up with
dopamine
that.
earlier, right? So dopamine it's got a bit of a bad name in kind of recent times because it's associated with a lot of addictive behaviors, dopamines. But from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, it's more about how quickly the dopamine spikes. So when you're doing things like flow state and you're working and you enter flow state or you're reading, then it's like a slower release dopamine, which doesn't have a big crash at the end. But when you do certain things like scrolling on your phone, porn, alcohol.
Hazard, game of hazard, how we call it, hazard. No, sorry, it was when people play the slot machine. That kind
Okay,
of
the
thing.
slot, yeah, the casino,
Yeah.
addicted, like things like that. It causes problems because it spikes your dopamine and then afterwards crashes. Then that leaves you feeling less motivated and less feel good right afterwards.
Exactly. That taps into the fact that, sometimes you search for dopamine because you're feeling perhaps low, which is fine. It's okay. But after a high, there can only be a low. And if you couldn't sustain this before, imagine if you can sustain it after having a spike.
Right.
So that's exactly the reason why we get addicted to things. And tech companies know this very well.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying that candy for your brain, which is 5 minutes on Instagram, you can have it. You're not going to die. But there's a huge price that you pay for that. Huge. You're giving
Especially
away
if
your
you're doing
power.
it for, people aren't doing it for 5 minutes.
Because
I mean,
of the
I
way
would
it's
urge
been engineered.
people to have a look at their phone usage time part of their phone in the settings. You can see, and I think most people will be quite surprised at how long they spend on certain apps.
When
Which
you see it, it's shocking.
Yeah.
And it seems an innocent and genuine thing to do, but it has huge implication, especially for your kids. They see you doing it, so there's no way that you can persuade them to not do it for that long.
Yeah.
They see you doing it. But in any case, it very much has to do with this spike, which creates addiction. And then it's difficult to sustain a low moment if you couldn't sustain it before either. So the point is not getting there. So what would be much better to do is to search for things that don't give you such a spike, like a rise of dopamine, but it's more like serotonin based.
Sure.
Now, the difference between these two neurotransmitters is that dopamine takes you here very quickly. They're both called the happiness neurotransmitters. Serotonin doesn't take you there. But like all the other hormones, each one of them has many functions in the body. It's not just one thing. They do a lot of things. One of the functions of the serotonin is to be a mood stabilizer.
Okay.
So when you feel serotonin is safer, when you release serotonin, it's safer just because you don't get there. But you don't even spike or get down immediately so quickly because its job is to keep you stable. Now, this explains why people who meditate, Buddhist, but also all the other religion, even every religion who has prayer, of course, it's a form of meditation. Why they tend to be wiser, unless they go into an extremist level, and it's another story. But for example, people who meditate, they tend to be calmer and wiser, not just when they meditate or half an hour after that, but generally in their life. Why? Because they have found a way to release serotonin. And when you don't get there, your brain functions much better because activates certain functions and they are stable. So this is one of those benefits of understanding how the brain works. And to reconnect with where we started, one gift of mine that I discovered, and that's how I ended up doing this job, is while I was getting ready to become a coach, I was very unfulfilled. Not unfulfilled. I was very non-confident, because I was saying I was competing with so many other more experienced coaches. So I realized that a big problem of mine is that my brain needs substance. It's not enough. That was an American school, a top American school that trained me in becoming a coach. But in America, they're very much about the doing. In Italy, we need the theory first. So what I was doing is I knew how to coach people, but I was here. There was no foundation that was building upon. So what I decided to do, it was no coaching, but started studying on my own. So I started doing some psychology courses in different universities. But I realized slowly, I was more into how the brain works. And a gift of mine that I discovered in this process, how did I discover it? Because at that time I knew I have to observe. And when I feel something, I know I need to investigate the trigger and the meaning. So what I discovered, I was
both
attracted
positive
by this.
and negative.
Positive and negative.
Right.
Because that's how you should make a decision in your life anyway, based on what things make you feel. I realized that it was becoming easy for me to simplify how the brain works and bring it to people. So that's what I started doing in my coaching. And the more I did that, the better they felt and more confident they were on the journey, and the more in control they were about their own behavior and their relationship with others as well. And again, because I know my feelings and my energy fluctuations, I felt a particular type of excitement. And I said, there must be something in it. It must be something. And then I decided to invest in this because I wanted to feel more of that. And that's how I realized if I keep studying, and at that point I invested in some applied neuroscience courses, and I said, if I learn more, I can base my business on that. And I did it. And then from that moment on, it went amazing because it was a wonderful contribution to the coaching I was doing. It's not just coaching, it's understanding, Darius. In this moment, this was probably happening. Would you be interested in hearing it? They say yes, because they want to understand. Human beings want to understand how they function. But so many books and speakers and academics, they speak so complicated. I'm not a neuroscientist and I'm not an academic. I wish I was a historian. It didn't work.
Right.
Still, it left me with this desire to learn and study and understand. So that's what I do. I study. I simplify exactly because I'm not a neuroscientist. I remove everything that I know my people won't keep. They're not going to learn if you overwhelm them with details. So I simplify and I bring to them what they need to know. Very simple, very few concepts, but they are the basis of human behavior. If you understand them, you won in life. It really gives you an edge in business as well because you understand the machine, so you notice the trigger, you can intercept when something is spiking, so you can stop it before. But this requires knowledge and awareness. These two together can really change the world. Missing one of the two, lots of theory, but theory is here, real life is here. So my job is to do this. And why do I do this? Or how did I get here? I told you the story, but the bridge is I learned not just that I was passionate about learning about the brain. I'm passionate about a million things. It was coming natural to me. It was a gift to simplify and bring it to others. And that's how I built a successful business because I turned my element into the business. So it doesn't mean that I know everything about it. Of course I don't, but I'm not scared. Because when I'm with clients or when I do my talks or masterclasses, I know now, because it happens so many times, I can count on my intuition. Where there's something that I don't know. I mean, sometimes I say something, I have no idea where it comes from. Rationally, I know it's dormant maps being in my brain, maps that I acquired by reading, studying, listening, but I didn't think about them anymore, so I think they're lost. But they are there. So when there is the right energy, as an insight and intuition, it's an electrical signal of two maps colliding. That signal is what makes you feel like, when you have an intuition, you tend to have
yeah.
That's why it's called aha. Even that, it's a little release of dopamine. It's a little bit like when you watch a movie with a complex plot.
Yeah.
And you don't really understand, and then suddenly there's an element, and you think you understood.
Right.
You
It
had
all
that
comes
feeling.
together. Yeah.
Now I know that feeling means I just had an insight. An insight is one of the most precious things you can have. But very often, what do? Maybe you're buying
Those
groceries.
little flashes of insight into things.
You have it. If you don't take it, grab it, nurture it, talk about it, write about it, dance about it, whatever, it's gone. And that's your source of deep knowledge. So when I am in this situation, if I'm asked something that I don't know, and I can promise you, I don't know a million things about that because it's such a complex organ, I know my intuition will be there. And because I am in my element, I'm not scared when I go on stage. It's my element. I'm more scared if you put me in silent in an archive alone all day, every single day probably. Now I know it. But when you are in your element, you feel at home. And when you're at home, you're relaxed. And when you are relaxed, your brain can perform much better. Some of your cognitive functions are enhanced. Plus, there is your intuition helping you.
I think that's very important. The type of state of mind you're in, and how the quality of your thinking comes out as a result. So, especially in the workplace environment, if you speak about stress and pressure is everywhere in modern work. Can you explain what's happening in the brain when you're stressed, and how can we reset our nervous system in the moment to be able to reach a better state of mind from which to think better, be more productive, be more in our element, etc.?
Thanks for asking, Darius, because this is so key to what we do, again, especially in the corporate world. First of all, the number one thing to do is to develop awareness. And that's something you don't do in the moment, you do it before. And not necessarily journaling, although it's an amazing tool. It's just by taking into the habit of, what am I feeling? What made me feel this way? It's what we've been repeating since we started the podcast. Like, keep being in touch with yourself, get less distracted. Just stay in your inner world, because it is true that the answers are always inside yourself. The question is, do you ask yourself the right questions? And do you listen for the answer? Do you know what to search for and where? So this is the first thing. But let's assume we are talking about a person who has developed a certain level of self-awareness. So he's capable of understanding, being in touch with their body. What happens is, can I do a little premise before answering?
Sure.
Because I want to talk about parts of the brain that I firstly explained what they are, otherwise it gets confusing. I want to take for granted that everyone knows what a limbic system is, for example. So I have here my best friend.
Okay,
Here
so
it is.
can hold it up to the camera.
Yeah.
This is
So I'll know if it's visible
the
enough.
best friend.
So very, very briefly, I really want to explain, and it's key to remember, and this can solve a lot of problems, not just in corporate at work, but also at home. I mean, that's probably the most relevant thing here, is how do I handle tough situations, especially with teenage kids or, a partner. So the brain is made of many different parts. We're going to look only at the most important to answer your question. So first of all, we need to say that how are children born? The way they're born is you have kids, so you might know this. In the tummy, the first part that is born is the brain, and is what we call the limbic system, is the emotional side of the brain. So technically, is this part here. Right. Okay, this is the first part that is born.
So the brain grows outwards.
Yes,
from that.
It grows kind of this way.
Is that the reptilian brain that they speak of?
Yes and no. It might be what you're saying, but the problem is this theory, the triune brain, has been debunked a long time ago.
Okay, so the idea that this initial structure, which is the reptilian brain, which
is the
is
reptilian word that
the reptilian word you don't like.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I wouldn't use, because it brings back to a theory that is being debunked.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that it's not true that the brain was born from here. So I would just simplify. I would forget that theory. I would forget the word reptilian, and I would also forget the idea that the two hemispheres, left and right, is rational and creativity, another big, huge myth that we really need to debunk. It's been debunked already a long time ago. But this kind of theory make the brain so easy to understand, had a grip on the mass.
Yeah.
It's so difficult to help the mass understand it's not true, sorry. We say this because we thought it was this, but now neuroscience is telling us something else, and we need to let that go.
So that whole theory of left side of brain is creative, right side is logical, is not true. And when you're being creative, you're using all your brain, and when you're being logical too.
They talk constantly.
Yeah.
And it's such a complex thing. I wouldn't even get into the left or right thing. Yes, we have two hemispheres. They're kind of the same. They look the same. So we have two amygdala and so on. But I wouldn't go into the creative and logic thing, because it doesn't make sense.
It's not true. Okay.
Why am I so solid on this? Because that thing that has been, again, represented, even though we knew it was wrong. And it was wrong, Darius, that we need to say why. We're not accusing anyone here. But until a few years ago, when technology wasn't at the level where it was today, we couldn't know what's happening here. It was very difficult. So the understanding of the brain was coming from the observation of human behavior. So you observe, you see some patterns. It's kind of what the NLP does, the neuro-linguistic programming. It's just observation on behavior. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It's not scientific. Some people love it, absolutely fine. But if it cannot be reproduced in another research, in another study, sorry, it's not a discipline, let's say.
Okay.
But again, it doesn't mean it doesn't work or it's not true. It's just the approach that is different. Now, the myth about left and right came from observation. But now, with the new scans that we can do about the brain, we can see what is happening real time in the brain, in the moment. And we know now that it doesn't work as we believed long time ago. That's why today we're debunking so many myths.
Right.
But they had such a grip on culture, and it's very difficult. But what is the problem? Because you might say, but who cares if someone still believes that? No, there is a problem. Because it's a label that gets attached to people. And people who don't have a high level of self-awareness get attached to that label. And they start believing what is not true about themselves, but it's easy to grasp.
So they're like, I'm a left-sided brain person.
So I don't do that.
Right.
Like I've been told many times I'm a very right-brainy type of person, which is true. I never believed that it's confined to that, but I am also very creative. So what? But if I had a lower level of self-awareness, I might just make decision about my career, for example, based on logic and rational thinking, not including. I know now that having a creative outlet, it's a must for me. But if you give me that label and I don't question it, which very often happens, especially with the Myers-Briggs personality test, that's been debunked a long time ago. They're still selling it. Companies are still buying it. Why? Because apparently it solves a problem. And it's the problem
what's that test? Sorry.
It's the Myers-Briggs test. I think it's called MBTI.
Okay.
It's been super famous since the 70s, I think. It's a personality test that tells you if you're an introvert, if you're an extrovert. It gives you some label, but it's never really been scientifically proved. It's not based on science. It's based on pseudoscience. Now, some of the things that they find out, it might be true, but it cannot be relied upon. So you want to go, today there are many more personality tests, which personally I don't like anyway, because I'm more for the idea.
Because it's boxing people into a category, which we are all, as you said, there's all different sides to us, right? So we have, you can be creative and logical.
But more than that, Darius, we said since we started, it's all about self-awareness. If you need a personality test, which is based on stats, numbers, to tell you who you are and what you're great at, we have a much bigger problem. You're not self-aware. And a personality test is not going to solve that. So that's why I don't like using them too much, because unless there's a specific reason, I'd rather give you a journey that you can do with me or that you can do on your own, rediscover yourself. And no one will tell you who you are, who you're not, what you should do, what you're great at.
Only you can.
Only you can. And there's a lot of power.
Because only you are feeling what you're feeling in reaction to certain ideas or conversations or whatever you're spending your day on, right? Only you know, okay, this is getting me tingly or this is getting me like feeling low energy.
There's a lot of power in that. As I said, the decision about my career was made based on how I feel when I do certain things. And because I realized I feel great when I express my empathy, my ability to connect the dots, my ability to simplify the brain, because it was so clear to me, when the right opportunities came, I could see them, I could grab them. Because I was aware, because I set my mental filters, which are called RAS. It stands for Reticular Activating System. It's what, it's what you make your brain attuned to. My brain is so powerful, I can process a million things. There's a red scarf there, but I'm talking to you, and to be honest, it's irrelevant right now. But my brain can process it. But I am so attuned to what we're saying that I don't. My brain doesn't. But if you ask me, oh, what about something red in this room? I'll naturally go there.
Right.
So the thing is, because in that moment I activated the right filters, the right RAS, when the right opportunities came, I could see them. Now, I'm pretty sure those opportunities were there before, but because I was so more interested in my CV and what
Yeah.
job can I find with my CV or with my history master, I just couldn't see them because my filters were set on history. So that's why I think having a high level of self-awareness is key for everything in life. And no personality test can help you with that. It can be a trigger. It might make you curious. But if you're told by statistics who you are and how you function, you're not there.
Right.
You're not living as a human
So you
being.
need to
You're still
feel
living
more
like a human
yourself.
doing.
So would you say things like goosebumps, when you feel that, that's a big signal?
There must
Yeah.
be something in it. Otherwise, you wouldn't feel it.
Yeah.
You want to explore it and you want more of that. So you want this to guide your decisions.
So like, do you get goosebumps quite a lot in your
lot.
days? Yeah. And those are like little
I
signals.
know. And
that,
I
yeah.
know when it happens, I need to stop, process, because if I keep buying groceries or whatever,
Yeah.
it's gone. It's like an insight. When you notice an energy fluctuations, either like these or like that, up and down, when you notice a movement of energy in your body,
Yeah.
you want to explore it because something has made it happen.
Yeah.
You want to know what it is. You want to know more.
So it's like our bodies are more intelligent than our brains in a way, but
It's
or
called physical intelligence,
Yeah,
indeed. We don't
it's-
talk about this much.
yeah.
That exists. Your body knows. Your body is reacting. So you've heard a lot of time saying, oh, you should listen to your body. Your body speaks to you.
Yeah.
Yes, but what does it mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You need to explain people what it means and how they can do that. Again, having a sort of a tracking system, it can even be on your phone, something that makes you capture that information. And what do you do with that information? You look at the patterns. It's the patterns that is giving you the answer that you're looking for.
Interesting. And that can work positively and negatively. So if something's
Exactly.
making your body or your energy feel low about doing it, then
Exactly.
that's also
Well, maybe you want a little less than that and more
Yeah.
of what makes you feel alive. So the decision of who to marry, what career, what country you should live in, it can be based on pros and cons because pros and cons, they are processed cognitively.
yeah.
But you are a human being. You are alive because you feel emotions. You want to have more of the good emotions. And there's no cognitive thinking that can give you that answer because what is rationally good? I mean, I had a degree at that point. I had a master. It made sense for me to become a historian,
Yeah.
except that I would have cried probably every day.
And you can rationalize things, right? You can always find a justification as well. So yeah, whereas your intuition might make jumps into the correct answer without always all the connecting points there, maybe. So maybe start off with that and then follow the logic afterwards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you want to know who you are, how you function, how you respond to things and make decisions based on that. I'm not saying, oh, you need to decide with your heart. That's another common saying that I hate because it
Yeah.
means nothing. Just follow your heart. It means nothing. It means eventually, but you have to explain it well, listen to your body. It doesn't mean that if you like something, you have to go for it, but at least you want to capture that information, put it somewhere visible. Again, keep doing that, looking at the patterns, and then factor this in your decisions. Following your heart, it means doing a nice gesture when you feel it. Do it. It's not going to change your life. But if you feel unfulfilled, not just at work, even in a relationship or living in a specific country, you want to check how you feel. It's your body, it's not your heart. Emotions stand for energy in motion. What you label as an emotion, joy, frustration, hatred, whatever, it's basically energy in motion is the label that we attach to that movement of energy in your body. And that movement of energy includes movement of neurotransmitters and hormones. The more you understand about that, the better decisions you can make. So the thing about the smartphone, we all know cognitively, this is not good, this continuous spike of dopamine. We know it. You want to be all aware of that because if in that moment you notice that you need some dopamine and that's why you reach your phone, sometimes you do it automatically, but still the signal is the same. Maybe I'm bored, I've been too focused, I need a spy. Well, if you understand all that, At that point, you probably know what else gives you dopamine. Look for something else. What you want in the end is not Instagram. It's a little dopamine that breaks the cycle of focus, boredom, or whatever. What you're looking for is dopamine. It's okay. There's nothing wrong in that.
So what are
Find
good,
a healthier
what are healthy
way.
sources of dopamine then?
And you can only know these because of you. Tennis, for example, gives me a lot of dopamine. Playing
Right.
it and watching it. For you, it might be something else.
Paddle.
We might fight on that a little bit later on, maybe.
Okay.
Later on. But you see the point?
Yeah.
It's about understanding. So how often we feel like I'm hungry. I'm at home, for example, during
Yeah.
the pandemic. You know, and I reach to the kitchen to have a snack because I feel I'm hungry. Are you sure you're hungry, Bruna? Or maybe you're bored. And during the pandemic, I was bored sometimes. So, or maybe you feel lonely. I remember these. I feel something and I go to the kitchen because I'm Italian. So for me, food is
Right.
always
Comfort.
the solution to everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was a tough one for me. But the reality is when you understand all that and you learn to recognize the feelings and the emotions inside your body, you might understand, do I really feel hungry? Or do I feel lonely? Because it's two different solutions. One is the kitchen cupboard. The other one is calling a friend.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. And when it comes to listening to your body, you said, listen to your heart. People say, I have a gut feeling about something, or I feel like we mentioned goosebumps. Is it just the overall emotion then? Or because we mentioned also transmitters, which we know serotonin is produced in the gut, and apparently there's even neurotransmitters in the heart as well. So there is like a type of
There's a continuous movement. Consider that.
Intelligence in all of your body, and specifically people throughout history have mentioned heart and gut as two sort of main other centers. Would you agree with those?
I would say that the gut is directly connected with the brain,
Right.
to the point that problems like anxiety, for example, or the fact that you can't stop, you might think is a character problem, or it might be your mental health. It might actually depends on the bacteria in your stomach.
Right.
It's complex, but they are strictly related, to the point that in the gut, we have some neurons which are made of the same material of the neurons we have in our brain.
Right.
But they have two very different ways to process information. One is cognitive, the other one not. So your gut is really speaking to you, is talking to you, and is also the source where the trigger for insights comes. So I had this gut feeling.
Yeah.
Well, my take on this is, if you have a gut feeling, listen to that.
Right.
It doesn't mean you should impulsively act on that, but you want to listen. Again,
Explore as well.
explore it, capture it. Because the truth is, I don't know if what you had as an insight is true or not, but the truth is, something has triggered it. That's a fact. It's a little bit like having butterfly in the stomach when you see someone.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's the right man for me.
Right. There's
It
something.
means this relationship, this interaction has triggered butterfly in the stomach. That's a fact.
Right.
What to do with that fact is another story, and you don't want to decide in the moment.
Right.
But the thing is, something has triggered it. It wouldn't be there if there was no meaning.
So step one is recognize there's some physical reaction. Step two is like look into it more. You said, oh, that doesn't mean that I love this guy. There's butterflies. That could mean danger from this guy. or like it could be.
Generally, it is different feelings, but yes, you're feeling something. It might be just chemistry, physical attraction, strong physical attraction.
Right.
I think very often we mistaken love with other things like chemistry or, sexual attraction. So,
Well, you ideally want all of them, of them aligned, right? You want to have the physical, the chemistry, the mental connection.
But imagine that if you didn't have some of them, and maybe you're a teenager and you only had that sexual attraction that triggers certain movements, and then the teenage brain is a particular topic, you just think, oh, I love you and I will love you forever. I mean, we said it when we were young because that's the only feeling we know, and we think this is love. Love is way more than that, is exactly what you said. But because I don't know and I don't understand, I feel something that must be love. I love you and I will love you forever. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, It's about understanding. So going back to the test, and then I want to answer your question about the stress.
Sure.
A personality test is not going to help you with that. It can be an interesting trigger of some thoughts. That's it. You want to learn to be aware of all these, and you can do it individually. You can do it in groups. Sometimes I do teamwork, and I take teams to work on them, because doing this work individually can cost a lot of money for the company. So maybe I generally work with leaders, and generally it starts from the very top of the pyramid. And then because they can't spend that much for individual journeys, we do this work in several appointments in
groups
group
or-
coaching
Sure.
settings. So in any case, everyone can do it on their own as well. They don't need me, or they don't need a coach to do it. Of course, having some tool speed up the process and make it more structured. But the reality is, I did it on my own. I didn't even know coaching existed at that time. I didn't know there were so many books helping with that. I did it on my own. It took me a long time. I've been stuck for a long time. It's also true that in that stuckness, I've learned a lot. And then I turned it into a business because I've learned so much. Of
Yeah,
course,
which is sometimes you need to go through the stuckness to actually gain the insights up, to go through the struggle.
then you see,
Yeah.
poison, medicine,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Right.
I'm grateful now to everything that happened in that case. So a personality test is not going to help you because it doesn't help you develop that awareness. But I can promise you, with that awareness, you solve a lot of things in your mind, in your life that you don't even connect. You don't even see that problem. Oh, but that's my boss treating me badly. How is this connected with my self-awareness? Well, let me tell you, there's always a connection, because the question is, how did you end up there? What kind of dynamics have you contributed to create to allow this to happen? And what brought you to that organization? What brought you to that situation? So it all starts with awareness, and that everyone can increase their level of awareness on their own. Yes, of course, working with me will make it faster, but if you're not in a rush, and it's not a rushed process anyway. So, Darius, I'd like to go back to that question. I
Sure.
think it's really
About
important.
stress at work. Yeah.
So what does it mean being stressed? Let's look at the structure first, because I think it makes more sense. So the baby, when it gets born, the development starts from here. So when you go and look at the ecography, you start growing from here, and then the rest. And this is the spinal cord, and that's where the rest comes afterward.
And that's the limbic system,
And
is
that's
it?
the limbic system. Now, the
Okay.
limbic system is the part of the brain, is the first part that is born. This is really important. I'll tell you why in a moment. And secondly, is responsible for the emotion. The external part, let's call it the cortex, is the last one that gets developed. Now, this area is called the prefrontal cortex, often called PFC, and it's this area. That is where the rational thinking happens. Causes and effect, assessing risk, rational logic thinking. So what that means is, if you have a crash, or I really want to say this, I know someone might not like it, but I really want to say this, or if you do a violent sport, like boxing can be,
Sure.
or rugby.
Impact.
Do you remember Rocky Balboa?
Oh, yeah.
The movie?
Yeah.
I think it was already in the third movie that the character started having some issues related to his brain. The doctor said
Sure.
he shouldn't fight anymore. But he was so attached to his identity, he couldn't stop. But if you look at the other movies of the saga, you see that he's declining mentally, because the brain is not made for that.
Well,
Actually,
that's
this is
proven now, yeah? That I mean,
It's
all the
proved.
NFL players that have serious brain damage, boxing
Someone
obviously.
are suing the federation because
Yeah.
they knew it, but they hid it. So
But even like soccer, football, you know, where people head the ball quite a lot.
when I see
when
this,
I
that's
was
why
growing up,
I
we
love
used to
tennis
do
and not football,
we
because
used to
it's
do
too
heading
much.
practice with the balls that was super pumped up, and
It
even
really
as a young
hurts.
brain, it
Especially
hurt.
young brains.
Yeah.
Especially young brains. I mean, we should never overlook the implication of things that we do or let them do when they're so young. That thing that you said, and alcohol,
Yeah.
and the use of drugs or marijuana, how do we call it? Pot?
Marijuana, weed, yeah.
And it's okay, that's innocent. We all know, guys, this is really serious. The implication that this can have on a growing brain are huge. And if you don't know them, you might overlook things that are really important for their life well-being and mental health and their future. So it's huge. So we need to be super careful, because if you damage this will have a huge impact in your ability to think, which is the reason why we should never judge when we see someone not thinking straight, like, oh, come on. Well, be careful, because that person might have been the most intelligent person on the planet and just had an accident, perhaps.
Sure.
So prefrontal cortex, limbic system, spinal cord, okay? There's a million things to say, but I'll just stick to your question and try to make it clear for everyone to understand. Now, this is a question for you. What is the number one job of the brain?
Oh, number one job. Keep us alive.
Exactly. How?
Away from danger, towards things that are good for us, like that keep us alive, like resources, reproduction, food, seeking food. What else? Obviously, all the bodily functions and keeping everything working.
Exactly. So the number one job of the brain is not to think, is to keep us alive. Why? In many different ways, which can be summarized in two. One is by containing and managing the survival instinct.
Excuse me.
And the other one is by regulating the energy that allow the bodily function to happen. I mean, the brain is responsible for the whole machine, okay? So the brain is responsible for deciding what amount of energy goes to what organ, okay? When the brain is in a normal, good state, like now we're talking, everything is fine, our body is doing its job, okay? That's really, really important. So the number one thing is to save our life. So these two things, the survival mechanism, and this takes a lot of time, a lot of energy in the brain. The survival instinct is kind of a radar. You can imagine sort of a radar that is scanning all the time, even now. We're okay, this is beautiful, it's safe, but my brain is still doing that. Because if suddenly there's a bang outside of the door, I need to be ready.
Yeah.
So that radar signals if there is an incongruent fact happening. If we are here talking at peace, there shouldn't be a bang there. If there is a bang, he noticed there's something wrong, and then it's a huge red flag, like danger, danger, danger. Yeah, but maybe it's just the wind crashing a plant.
Sure.
That's the bang.
Yeah.
This is key, because the brain is an exceptional machine, but it doesn't know the difference between a real danger and a perceived danger.
Okay.
What that means is a perceived danger, like a plant coming down, can trigger the same reaction as if someone was shooting.
And it's like automatic. That's why those prank videos are so funny, because you see people here, like some guy comes out of a bush or something, and then you see their kind of slow motion reaction. It's like this automatic, like jumping, jerky, like try to escape, squealing or whatever.
Exactly. So this is key, because the job is doing its job. The brain is doing its job. It's not doing anything wrong. It's not as sensible to understand. But this is key, because that means that you, me, and everyone else on the planet, we react as if it was a real danger to something that is not. And if you don't have that level of self-awareness that we noticed before, by not noticing the difference, we might overreact. It happens quite often to something. The mechanism is perfect, is correct, is working well. It's your awareness that is missing. And that's why, as a leader, you may shout when it's not appropriate. It's because you feel threatened. Yeah, but it's not a real threat, and you feel it. It doesn't mean it was there. So that's why we need that self-awareness. So going back to the brain, one mechanism is the survival instinct, okay? It's there, it works really well, it does its job, full stop. The other mechanism is the process of homeostasis, which is the ability of the brain to regulate the energy according to what is needed. If I need to digest, that part of the body needs more energy and attention than maybe anything else. So that's the job of the brain.
So that's why after you eat a big meal, you get a bit of a sometimes drop in energy, because all the energy has gone to digest.
Exactly.
And that's why sometimes you get more energy when you're like intermittent fasting. Sometimes people get more energy because there's no energy being used
Well done.
to digest. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's its job to regulate. But of course, if you understand it, you can help it a little bit, for example, with intermittent fasting or other practices. Now, the thing is, we're talking about a brain that is in a normal, healthy condition, like now, between you and I. What if I'm super stressed? When the brain is super stressed, it doesn't have all the energy to do all that. And believe me, all that takes a lot of energy. So the brain alone consumes up to 25% of the whole energy of the body.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot. For such a small organ, if you think about it, it's really a lot. Now, this explains why, after a day of strategic thinking with the board, you're more exhausted than a full day of gardening, doing hard work under the sun. It's a different type of
No, I feel
tiredness.
that. Like I feel that especially when I'm trying to learn a new language and you're just like inundated with lots of the new language, and then afterwards your brain's like you're like tired. You're so tired afterwards.
It is. So what happens is when this is stressed, can't keep up properly with all that. But it's okay, Darius, because it's life. That's how we build. The brain has a certain level of tolerance. Let's put it this way.
So when you're stressed, you
can still, because
still operate.
It still
but
operates. I mean, some organs are supposed to do some work every day. But if one day or two they don't, come on.
So they don't do it because you're stressed. You're allocating more brain energy to thinking instead of
No, it's because something else happens, which I'll explain in a moment. Something else happens. So all that energy that is usually available, and that's how we built, it's not there. But it's not a big problem because the brain can also handle a certain level of stress for a certain amount of time. And even if some organs are not doing exactly the job in the right way at the right time, it's still doable. Okay.
So when you go into stress mode, it diverts the energy away from the maintenance of normal bodily functions, things
exactly.
like that. Okay.
Now, this is the problem. And that's why we say that stress can kill people. And it does, actually. It's not stress in itself. It's the impact that stress has on our health. Because if some organs are not doing their job, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, maybe it's not a big problem. But for a prolonged time, that's not doable.
That's why they speak about chronic stress, that if you're in a state of chronic stress,
you have unbalanced something here.
And that stress is you're switching your body and mind into fight, flight, or freeze mode, which is the stress response, right?
Exactly. The result of this is when you're chronically stressed, or when you create an environment where your team is chronically stressed, maybe even just by your presence or the way you talk, something is not working well. And that takes a toll, and it can manifest with people getting sick, or maybe people leaving, and so on. It doesn't matter how many benefits you give them. If their health is at risk, they're going to leave, or they're going to create problems. So keeping a healthy brain means keeping a healthy body. That's why they say mens sana in corpore sano. In Latin, it's always been this way. They already knew this before neuroscience came up. Mens sana, healthy mind and healthy body, because they naturally work together. Now, this is what happens in a normal state. The limbic system handles the emotion. Now, we say this is the spinal cord. The spinal cord is the main asset of the nervous system. The nervous system is made by the peripheral nerves, and then the spinal cord and the brain. Now, what that means is if I touch this and it's cold, for example, the reason I feel it's cold is not because I think it's cold. It's because that information goes through my nervous system so quickly and through the spinal cord that it goes where? Here, not here. So I don't think it's cold. I feel it's cold. And this is crucial because what that means is when I have that movement of energy that we mentioned before, those emotions go straight where? Into the limbic system. And we said it's in the limbic system that we have the survival instinct, radar, and system. It is not here. That's why I might overreact to something as if you are attacking me, threatening me. Well, actually, you're not. But I cannot think because the information stops here. Now, what happens here is, imagine, I'll show you this in this other way. Imagine this is the spinal cord. This is the limbic system, this is the cortex, and this is the prefrontal cortex. So rational thinking, emotional management, spinal cord that connects with the rest of the body. The moment I perceived that there is a danger, I stress the word perceive. The moment I perceive there is a danger, that information goes straight into the limbic system. Here, the survival instinct system activates a process that sends a signal to the endocrine system to release cortisol. So when I'm stressed, I have a spike of cortisol. Why? Because the job of the cortisol, and as I said, hormones and neurotransmitters are little parts that travels through the bloodstream. That's why when you win, you feel like, yay! You have this energy. It's the dopamine that is traveling through your body, okay? In the same way, when you produce cortisol, you get basically ready to fight, flight, or freeze. And that's where you get a certain posture, like defensive, or maybe, you just want to run away. It's the impact of cortisol in your body. That's why learning to read the body language is really helpful, because it's telling you what is happening inside the inner world. So imagine that this is the situation. I perceive that is a danger. This sends an immediate signal to the endocrine system, which starts releasing suddenly so much cortisol, which we said is like liquid that travels in the bloodstream. So what happens is, it's like if it's floating the prefrontal cortex. The information is here. Now, in that moment, I'm no longer a rational being. I am an emotional being. Now, that's the trouble. That's where a new world open. What that means is, normally we go in the world in this way. So we are attached. Prefrontal cortex and limbic system work together. We're not robot. But if you remove this, you are purely an emotional being. And now this has so many implications, because in that moment, you can't think. This can happen, for example, if you're having a meeting in front of the board, and someone is probably, having a negative reaction to what you say, and then you go blank.
Yeah.
But you know your slides, you know your presentation, you're so well prepared, yet you go blank. Has nothing to do with your confidence or your preparation. It's just in that moment, that reaction, maybe he's thinking about the Champions League. You don't know. Maybe it wasn't about you. But you go in that state. You can't think about what you were supposed to say next. Or maybe let's talk about relationship. You know how it is with women.
Yeah, to be honest, that's what's coming to my mind
So
when you're speaking.
She's going to talk about that. Let's be honest. Let's talk
I was
about
also
the
thinking
elephant in the
about
room.
my children, and also thinking about sort of conversations I've had recently with people that can get a bit heated at times. And I do realize that not only myself, but interesting that you mentioned someone else's body language, that when someone else is triggered into an emotional state, it sometimes it can be very hard to get through to them at that moment when they're in the triggered high cortisol, maybe limbic system in control mode. You're not going to be able to hey, let's speak about this in a calm, rational way. So what do you do then? Do you need to get them out of
You should pay me a lot of money now to tell you this, how to deal with women, especially, or teenagers at that point. Now, I'm happy to tell you, but you're right. When we go into an emotional state, it means we are in that state. So you might not know, you might not have my answer, but you know on your own now that the last thing you want to do to someone who's like that is to talk rationally. That's why when we get angry, you men, you shouldn't say, calm down. I don't want to calm down. I'm an emotional being. I want to express my emotion in that moment. And you'd better let them do it. Why? Because when we let the emotion out, the effect of cortisol and the other neurotransmitters, it tends to fade away. Unfortunately, this is something you need to know. The positive, the feel-good neurotransmitters effect, like dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, it tends to fade away pretty quickly. The effect of cortisol feels stronger and lasts longer. And there's a good reason. It's there to save our lives. So let me tell you behind the scenes what happens. When this happens, technically what is happening is that the cortisol, its job in that moment, because there's a perceived danger, is to stop you from thinking and it sends all the energy, let's say glucose and oxygen, that normally goes into your prefrontal cortex, and this takes most of the energy of the whole brain. We said the brain consumes about 25% of the energy of the body, but the prefrontal cortex is about 23% of the energy of the brain.
Right.
It's a lot. That's why you get tired after strategic thinking, for example. Now, what happens is, if I perceived that there's a bang out there, there's a danger, and I think about it, and that's a real danger, I might be shot by now.
Yeah.
I shouldn't
You
think.
can't think and process. You've got to move quickly. Like,
Yeah.
Go. Yeah.
Fight, flight, or freeze. It's an innate mechanism. Now, what happens is, the job of the cortisol is to stop me from thinking, which it would be my natural reaction, and send all the energy, change the direction, and send it to my limbs so that I can fight, flight, or freeze. That's what happens. That's why you might notice during a heated conversation that people get rigid. They're telling you, I'm getting into the fight, flight, or freeze mode, which is telling you they feel threatened. It doesn't mean I threaten them. It's telling me they feel threatened.
They perceive a threat. Yeah.
If it's a negotiation you care about, what you want to do is to solve the real problem, which is not what they said. The real problem is that they feel threatened, independently from what they said. Your job is to calm the energy down so that you can talk to them again as fully functioning prefrontal cortex equipped human being.
I see.
Okay. So with women, the last thing you want to do is to say, calm down, sweetie.
I guess the other risk that tends to happen in arguments is you get a double triggering, right? So one person gets more angry, starts shouting, the other person starts shouting back, and now you've got two limbic systems going at it. How do you get out of that?
You keep fighting for a couple of hours. That's all the thing you can do. So what's
or
the
just
best thing
stop,
to...
this isn't working, let's take a breather, go for a walk.
Yeah, that would be very wise, Darius, except
you can't
that this
understand.
would require your prefrontal cortex to function. And in that moment, it doesn't, unless you worked on this before. If you have a certain level of self-awareness.
So you feel yourself starting to get into that.
So what's the best way to win an argument is to not have it. The moment you are in an argument, things are already gone.
Yeah.
Chances are you're both already in this way. So a great way is, as you just said, just notice. If you're attuned to your body because you did the inner work before, you notice, I know what's going on when it's about to happen, what's going to happen. They don't know, but I know.
Oh, right.
And if I care about the situation, I'd rather stop it now, while I know that I can still use my prefrontal cortex. Now, this is the benefit of knowing how the brain works. That's where we started at the beginning. When you know all this, you get much more control of what's really going on. And you have many more chances to get to the bottom of things. If you don't, you're just victim in the moment. And it doesn't matter how many soft skills or training you've done on leadership development techniques that can help you in the moment, you're not going to do it. While if you understand, it's like fertilizing the ground, the garden, where then you can plant a seed and have some beautiful flowers sprout. But teaching techniques or soft skills without fertilizing the ground, which for me is understanding how the brain works, it makes no sense because it's not going to stick. But if you understand, you might not remember what was the technique that Bruna said I was supposed to use. It doesn't matter. If you know what's going on, you will be able to be in control because you own yourself. And that's the key.
Because that's the only thing you 100% control is yourself, right? Other people.
You just want to know how the machine works and how it is connected. But as you see, not in a complicated academic way. There are a lot of amazing books out there, and I read plenty of them, and I love them all. But I have, I love reading and studying. Not everyone has the same amount of time or interest for that, which is the reason why I'm writing my own book, which is basically based on what we said and in a very simplified way, very immediate, very practical. Then if you want to go deeper, go with all the other books. But my point is all the other books are just too theoretical. And now I understand that, but how do I put it into practice?
Yeah. Okay, so your wife is acting angry with you. what do?
Run away.
Fight or flight.
Yeah, like
You can't fight, so you have to
come
fly.
back after a
Yeah.
couple of hours. Well, the best thing to do is, that's a very good question, is not to rationalize. If you can intercept her before she gets angry, that's better.
Yeah.
If you can't,
Because like you said, once the cortisol is triggered, and I've heard this before as well, it stays in the system for quite a long time.
much
And I've
longer than the positive.
Yeah, and I've
feeling
noticed that myself. Like when I've, as a parent, sometimes you get stressed and you get angry at your kids, and you can sometimes shout. That's what's happened. And afterwards, I feel bad, but it stays with me for quite a long time in the day. The sort of, you try to stay calm, but then you're like, I've told you 50 times calmly. Now look what you've made me do. Now you're making me shout. Now I'm in this mode. And then it's hard to get out of it. So how would you get out once you're in, or once you see someone else is in that mode? What's the best way? Like you mentioned, acknowledging the emotions. So is it always good to say, I understand you're feeling upset,
if you do,
or you're
don't
feeling,
lie.
or don't lie as well?
I can understand your feeling, but you need to do it maybe
My
not.
way.
Say I understand if you do really understand. So let me answer the question. I think the question are two is, one is, what do I do in the moment? If I come back home and, for example, she's angry already, I
Yeah.
can't stop it. What
Huffing
do I
and
do?
puffing.
And the other thing is,
God damn it. You can just hear the little
you can feel
comments.
it.
Yeah.
And the other question, if I'm understanding well, is how do I recover afterward?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to answer both. So the best thing you can do the first time is, especially because you're coming back home, let's say, and you're not angry, that's an advantage. So you
Yeah.
can still think. The best thing that you can do is to help her bring her prefrontal cortex back. And no, the answer is not by rationalizing. That is extremely irritating because you want to talk to me rationally when I am in my emotional state. I don't even listen to you. Maybe
Yeah.
you're right. Most of the time you might be right, but I just don't listen to you. So the best thing you can do is to acknowledge my feeling. Let's do a reverse engineering process. What do you want is to have a fully functioning prefrontal cortex
Okay.
on the other side.
Bring the brain back.
So
Bring the full
your
brain.
job is not to win the argument or prove that you're right. Your job is to bring her prefrontal cortex back. Now, what are the ways that you can do that? Nothing new, you know it. You might not have connected the dots yet, but firstly is acknowledging her feelings. When someone is that in an emotional state, it means there are emotions. True or right or wrong that it is the reaction, something triggered, they exist.
Yeah.
So you want to acknowledge that something, maybe your fault, maybe it's not your fault, has triggered that. Don't deny it or minimize it. We can eat you alive.
Right.
So it's about acknowledging, like you look really upset and I'm wondering what's making you feeling upset. Don't question it. Give her space. Because the thing is, another thing that we know because of the latest neuroscience studies is that when we as human beings label our emotions, when we talk about them, when we identify them and we let them out, they tend to lose the grip on us. So your job is to have her talk as much as possible about her emotions with no judgment, just be an outlet for her so that this removes the grip and more chances for her prefrontal cortex to come back. So acknowledging, but my advice would be don't say, I understand you. No, you don't understand.
Yeah.
Tell me that you understand me only if you do. Most likely you don't.
So just say, I can see you're feeling stressed or angry.
And I am
upset.
so sorry.
Yeah.
Independently from who's right and who's wrong, it's about acknowledging and making her feel safe. Because the reality is, if she's gone in that state, something has triggered her. She might feel threatened by something. What it is, we'll talk about this later. But the truth is, I'm telling you, I am feeling threatened. So your job is to bring me back to a safe space where I feel seen, heard, and felt. Then when my prefrontal cortex, and it takes a while because of what we said about cortisol, it takes a while. When you feel that the prefrontal cortex is back, then we can talk. It takes a lot of stamina for you to be there in that moment and maybe listening to things that you don't like, but believe me, is the best thing that you can do. Also because it's very difficult to fight with someone who has a positive energy and doesn't respond. one of the two at some point has to give up. Either you start fighting or I calm
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
It's not
Either
sustainable.
they come to me or I go to them. Yeah.
My recommendation is bring her to your
Yeah.
territory.
Yeah.
Because here both can think. If you go there, if you want to have fun, go there. But my recommendation is bring safety back, because she's telling you, I'm feeling threatened.
Even if she doesn't realize that's what's going on.
No, she doesn't. Unless she listened to our podcast, most likely
Yeah.
she doesn't.
Right.
Okay. So you want to make her feel safe genuinely. So things like, oh, I understand you. No. Generally, my reaction is, no, you don't. Firstly,
Okay.
be me in my shoes in that situation, then maybe you understand. So I understand, I wouldn't say it, but you could say, oh, I noticed, I can feel. That's true. I can feel that you're feeling really angry and I'm really sorry. And I'd love to help you. One good thing that you could do, if it's appropriate, if it's your wife, probably yes, but if it's your colleague. But one thing that you could try and do at some point, not immediately, when you feel that she's calming down a little bit, is, I'd really love to support you here. What would be the best way for me to support you here? I mean, I would have loved a man saying that when I was angry. No one did yet, but I'm optimistic. What would be the best way for me to support you? Would it be listening? Would it be talking? Would it be a hug? What would be the best way? The fact that you're asking me is already making me feel I have control of the situation. I'm not just your victim of whatever I think you did or didn't do. And you're giving me space for me to be. It's huge. Listening, support, talking, or a hug. Up to you to calibrate when one is more
Sure.
appropriate than the other. But the fact that you're
Yeah.
listening is huge. Remember, your job is not to win the argument, it's just that, to bring back her prefrontal cortex. There are different ways where you can do that. It depends on the context. But even if this happens to you, that you've been triggered, what do you do, Darius, for example? When you notice that you are upset, maybe because of your child did something, what are the ways that you know helped you so far? Calm down.
I mean, if I really need to calm down, I would breathe. I always try to breathe in for like 5 seconds through the nose and then breathe out through the mouth for longer as a little mini reset technique. Doesn't always work, but helps somewhat because, I mean, if it is appropriate, like change of vibe. So, look, give me 5 minutes. You know, if you're in a sort of stuck, stressed moment, take a break from it and then come back to it. I mean, in general, I find exercise helps me to de-stress totally. Like I like to play paddle or football, something that really engages me fully into that activity. So then when I'm like looking to return a paddleball, I'm not thinking about whatever work stresses I have or whatever. So that helps. But if it's like in terms of a micro behavior or a micro tactic strategy, it would be just to take a breath, I don't know what else there is. Yeah.
That's what it is. You're absolutely right. Intuitively, we know that rationally, maybe we don't connect the dot and we think, oh, that's it. But we know it already. It's about breathing consciously. And exactly as you say, it is breathing in, inhaling, but with a longer exhaling.
Sure.
That impacts directly the vagus nerve, and it immediately helps you reset the nervous system. Because basically, we have two nervous systems. Normally, we go with the parasympathetic nervous system, which is what regulates, for example, digestion, breathing, and all the other things that we normally do without thinking. The moment I'm stressed, because of everything we say, then the cortisol and the radar and so on, this gets shut down because in the moment I'm in danger, sorry, but digesting,
Yeah.
it's not that
We
important.
got to run. Yeah.
Running it is.
Or fight. Yeah.
So it activates the sympathetic nervous system. Now, the problem is this tends to stay activated much longer after the danger is gone or the perceived danger is gone. Your job is to shorten this time because by the time you have this one activated, some organs are not doing their job, which means when you're angry, you might just feel bloated if it happens, for example, after eating. It's just you're not digesting.
Right.
Or you might say, I'm so hungry, my stomach is closed, I don't want to eat.
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen to me because as an
people
Italian, I would eat every time anyway.
Yeah,
Whatever
some people
happens.
lose that appetite.
But
Yeah.
what happens in the moment is that because you switch nervous system, the parasympathetic, which regulates digestion, is not working. It's okay for a short amount of time. But do you see what I mean when I said if it's too prolonged?
So I think that's a very interesting point that we have these two we have these two modes, right? So parasympathetic and sympathetic, and it's via the limbic system and the vagus nerve that you switch in between one and the other.
Is the
Is
signal
that right?
that appears in the limbic system when it detects that there's a problem, the signal makes the switch.
Via the vagus nerve.
Yes, so it makes the switch, and then because of that, something is not happening, which is okay because it's not a priority in the moment. But if this stays for too long, over time you might be in trouble. The problem is you don't see the trouble immediately. It's after a long time when this imbalance creates the real problem that you may have to pay the bill.
That's because you've been in the parasympathetic mode too much.
The sympathetic.
The sympathetic mode too much, and then the parasympathetic is where all the natural bodily functions can occur and do their thing. You've been out of that mode for too long, so your body hasn't had time to repair or do all the
which
normal
might explain
functions.
the bloatedness, or maybe an impact on the immune system, and so on.
Right.
By the way, how do you remember between parasympathetic and sympathetic?
Because it's quite strange words they've chosen for.
It's not very intuitive.
Yeah.
But one way to help your listener to remember these is parasympathetic starts with P.
Mm-hmm.
P stands for peace.
Peace. Okay.
So that helps you remember the nervous system that, is activated when I'm at peace is the parasympathetic.
Okay.
Sympathetic, no P, no peace, it means it's the other
right.
one.
Okay.
So that's
which is like counterintuitive because sympathetic sounds peace, but so it's not. Okay.
It's not. But you see, understanding all this gives you so much more power. Now, I can teach you a lot of effective communication techniques on how to handle conflicts and so on. But the reality is, in that moment, you're not going to remember them unless you practice them so much when you were lucid. So you can use tools like, for example, the if and then tool. If you lose it, if you say, okay, I've heard this podcast today, it's so interesting, I really want to do some inner work, where do I start? Well, you can start about the potential conflict you might have with your partner or team members, and start practicing now when you are lucid and you can think properly. If this scenario happens, then I will do this or that. And if you keep thinking and talking about this for a long time, you are creating new neural pathways that even if your prefrontal cortex is no longer there, automatically you'll know what to do.
It will,
That's what military
kick
do.
in.
Military, they practice so much because even them in that moment, they can't think, but they used to handle stress at very high level and real danger, not even perceived, all the time. So how do they solve that? By practicing so much in so many different scenarios that when it happens, it's already in their brain.
Muscle memory, automatic response.
So the if and then tool, it's amazing. So predicting the scenario, and then if this happens, at least you have an automatism that can help you when your prefrontal cortex is not working. So I can give you a quick example here. When I did my TEDx talk years ago, I wasn't, as experienced as a speaker as I am today. So you can imagine, TEDx at that time was big. Today, nearly everyone does a TED Talk. Is not a big thing anymore. But at that time, I was like, wow, the opportunity of my life. I mean, you can imagine. Because I was so scared of making and leaving, because that goes on YouTube and it will be forever. And becoming a speaker was one of my dreams. So I know this is going to be my lifelong business card as a speaker. If I mess it up, I'm not going to do that part of my career anymore. So emotionally, I put a lot of drama into it.
That's
only
pressure.
An Italian woman can do. So what happens is, thanks, you see, poison and medicine, the fear was so much that I practiced so much, even at night, even when I knew the brain would be more receptive. I practiced and listened to my voice again and again and again 1,000,000 times. And I'm so glad I did it. Because when I went on stage, there was a factor that I couldn't really factor in, which was emotions. It was the biggest audience I've ever had, and I've
Right.
never spoken in front of a camera at that time before.
So it
That
was camera, audience,
2018.
lights, action. Suddenly.
And then a tight deadline because it's a conference. It's a
Right.
speaker after a
So
speaker.
there's like a timer saying 10 minutes left or whatever.
Yeah, it's too much. How
Right.
do I get off of here? But anyway, one way or another, I managed. The talk starts, and of course, at the beginning, I was a little panicking, hiding it, but panicking inside. And then suddenly, I felt so much in my element, and I would have stayed there forever.
Right.
I was so much more confident, enjoying. People were taking notes. Someone was even crying a little bit, which is always a good
Nice,
sign,
nice.
unless it's boredom. But I don't think it was that. It was an emotional thing at some point. Anyway, so fabulous. I said, like, you know what? It's in the bag. I made it. Except that at some point, I mean, I built a roller coaster in that talk, okay? And there was a moment I was very emotional where I always had to find my emotion to not cry. And I knew it was coming. So I was good at managing my own emotions. But in the moment where I should have said the most important sentence ever, the most emotional moment, like the height of the moment, there was an audio that shouldn't have come out of the slides.
Oh, God.
Oh, gosh.
Just messed your
no.
flow up.
Boom. I wanted to die. And I wasn't expecting it. So what happened is, because it's a conference, I prepared my slides at that video. There was a short video of a girl treated like a slave behind. It was a tough moment, emotionally charged. I removed the audio of that little piece of the video. But when they brought the slides inside the conference PowerPoint file, that thing got lost. They didn't know. I didn't know. I only discovered now. So the moment that I was ready to speak, the video.
Oh, no.
No, a lifetime dream.
Oh, no.
And that had a huge toll on me. I couldn't even say what sentence she said to eventually reconnect because I panicked and I went completely blank.
Really?
So I had to wait for that. And then suddenly what I noticed is I swallowed and then I started talking. And I don't know, Darius.
It was just
I mean,
automatic.
I know because there's the video. I don't know what I was saying. The voice was coming out. Of course, my energy changed. I think it's pretty visible. The voice started coming out, probably even at the right time, the right tone. My mind was just thinking, I just want to cry and run away.
Oh, my God.
And then I was seeing my father disappointed, my boss disappointed, my friends disappointed. And I said, I can't handle that disappointment. In all this fighting, my mouth was talking.
Wow. We're
Guess
still
what?
going.
I managed to get into the end. And I was so lost. And I was nearly about to say, I'm really sorry, guys. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I can't. I'm sorry. I need to go away. I was just a little bit like that.
Really?
Away from this. I didn't. And you know why? Because I practiced so much that no matter the drama that I was making inside, not only I kept talking, but when I finished, no one realized.
Yeah.
Everyone came to me as if it was a good party. Like, oh, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
They
sorry,
don't
guys,
know.
don't you know
yeah.
this? It was a nightmare and it was a big drama and nobody
Internally,
noticed.
the audience don't notice most things that the guys on
This
stage
is true,
will
but
know.
the real point here is I practiced so much in the right way. It was there. It was automatic. So it might not have been the usual authentic energy I put out there, but it was definitely there. So I managed to bring it back
It was
home.
a super rehearsed,
Exactly.
inbuilt. Yeah.
So the if and then tool is what you can do when you are rational. Not when you're emotional, you cannot count on that. But if you do it before, like today, you sit down and you turn what we said into practice.
Mm-hmm.
You have scenarios. When they happen, you can count on that automatism. But if you just wait until the moment to apply that effective communication technique that you've been taught, you're not going to do
Try
it.
to recall. So
You don't.
need to make it automatic then. Okay. So
Exactly. So it's very much about understanding and do something about it. Which again, as I said, it's what I'm writing a book about. I feel there's a gap in the market. Lots of amazing books saying a lot of very interesting things, a little practical. Or there are a lot of very practical books with lots of techniques, do this, don't do that, but they don't really explain what mechanism they are tapping into. So what I want
which
to do
is the brain
Exactly.
and the neuroscience. Yeah.
I want to merge the two in a very simple, practical everyday type of language way, because all the rest has been written and it's amazing, but not everyone is going to read it because not everyone wants to
Get really technical.
study.
Yeah,
No,
study,
it's too
yeah.
much.
So from a neuroscience perspective, what makes for truly effective leadership then? Is it understanding these different modes that the brain can go in that then goes through the whole body and then leads to the ability to think basically in different ways? And you want to get people in the best mode to think the best way.
Exactly. You want to be a smart leader, as I call it today. I say on my website, smarter leadership starts with understanding how the brain works. Techniques come afterward. Firstly, you want to understand the basic of human behavior. When you understand that, you will know, I promise you will know intuitively what's the right thing to do or what is happening behind the scenes. Because people don't always articulate what's happening in their world. But you can understand it if you learn what to read, what signals to read, and how to interpret them. So
in someone else.
In someone else and in yourself as
in
well.
Their own
because sometimes
body
you can
language.
trigger, you can threaten yourself as well with negative self-talk, for example.
Right.
Well, we always say, oh, negative self-talk, it is not helpful. Yeah, thank you. Here's why. You put yourself into a threat state. When you activate the threat circuit in the brain, you naturally go into fight, flight, or freeze mode. What that means is, if there's a bang there, thinking about what's the name of that plant that I've seen 3 years, it's not necessary. So I'm not going to think at the best of my ability. I'm not going to use my memory. I'm not going to be using my cognitive function. A lot of brain functions get shut down.
Yeah, that's interesting. What does get shut down? So you said memory gets shut down?
Memory, cognitive function, problem solving,
right?
Lateral thinking, critical thinking. The most important of all, this is really helpful, it's a sense of collaboration.
Oh, right.
If I feel threatened, I'm not going to be collaborative. It's not a choice. It just happens because I need to defend myself or my family. Collaboration is not a thing in that moment. So when you feel threatened, your tunnel focus on the problem, understanding the problem, looking at the problem, how to run away from the problem, opportunities, collateral solution. It's not a thing. It's out of your focus.
The bigger picture sometimes can get lost. That's
Definitely.
why people can
Definitely.
when they go into fight mode, whether it's in a divorce or a kind of a negotiation in a business situation, or people can lose sight of the bigger picture and they can get really, fight strongly and harshly over small details because they've probably gone into that mode of
Exactly. And I tell you something, because the brain is so interested in saving your lives, is naturally more attuned to the problem than the solution. Plus, the problem exists. So all the details, he said, she said, I did, she did that. How many times we get, lost into the details? It's a natural tendency of the brain because this consumes much less energy than thinking about something that doesn't exist. And normally the solution doesn't exist yet. There's an idea that there can be a solution, but it's still a question mark. It doesn't have a taste, it doesn't have a shape, doesn't have details. So the brain does this because to do what it needs to do, it needs to save energy. And energy is like a funnel, mental energy. Once it's gone, it's gone. It's only a good night's sleep that can refill it. So it's the brain job to ensure that you arrive at the evening still with some mental energy. To do that, it needs to filter out everything that is not vital. And unless I communicate to my brain that finding that solution is vital, it will always be more attracted by what's tangible and easier to grasp because it exists. So what that means is, if you understand this as a leader, you understand that it's your team members, naturally, I'm not going to think in terms of solutions unless they're visionaries. And that's another story, and not many people are. It's natural for them to be focused on that. It's you knowing how to derail the attention from the problem back to the solution and to keep them here. And that's why we say that for leaders, it's vital to have a clear vision, because you can always tap into that vision. That vision is a way that can help you. Yeah, but we say that we wanted to go there. So let's talk. One thing that I always say to my clients that they could do is, let's talk about the problem. Everyone is happy. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the problem because everyone can.
Everyone.
5 minutes. 5 minutes, let's explore the problem, color, taste, whatever it is. Then after that, do we all agree to move towards the solution? Which is more challenging, but it's more fun as well. Then you take them on board. 5 minutes, timekeeper say time is gone, move on to the solution. If it was already solved, how could it look like? We don't know. Okay, let's talk about how we will feel
If it was
once.
so.
You can imagine that. You cannot imagine the solution perhaps, but you can imagine what will happen after this unknown solution is in place. So if we don't know that, let's talk about what will happen afterward. And then from here, we can start rebuilding a reverse engineering process. However, this can only happen if the team is not feeling threatened. If you're there looking at, now you solve the problem, you only have 1 week to solve the problem, you're losing them. So that's what I meant at the beginning when I said it's about creating the condition, the brain conditions for their brain to function 100%. Because otherwise you give them a full salary, but you don't bring back their full functions. Is it smart? I don't think so.
So you need to foster an environment at work where nobody feels threatened, where everyone feels able to
Exactly.
relax and think of creative solutions to
Which is what we
issues.
call psychological safety, which unless you worked hard in building it, it's not there. It's not because you don't criticize openly your people, then you created an environment. There are actions that you need to take to fully create a psychologically safe environment. So that will ensure that they will feel. And let me tell you something, I don't want to make this too long, but as a leader of your family, of your community, of your team or your company, you should have one very specific concern. The number one concern is that your people don't tell you the truth. You really need to focus on that. Your kids, you must ensure that they will tell you the truth, because especially during the teenage, and let me tell you, teenage, do you know what's the problem? As we said, this is the last to get developed.
Right.
That's why they can't assess risk properly. That's why sometimes they seem adult, they think like adult, they speak like adult, but they still behave like children, because the brain ends its development around 25-year-old, roughly. So until 25, this is not fully there.
And that part's important for risk assessment and
this
for
is huge.
restricting, for, what's the word? Filtering and stopping yourself from doing certain behaviors, things like that.
Exactly. And this is valid for your teenage kids or for your very young team members in the team. You need to know that, because otherwise your expectations are not met. And it's not even their fault, because they don't know what they don't know. So it's really, really important to understand all that, because at least you know what's the best action that you can take.
Sure.
Yeah, so in terms of psychological safety, you really need to ensure it's there, because if they don't tell you the truth because they don't feel safe, and not only, you can be the best leader in the team, but if you have someone else making them feel shameful, or maybe gossip or laughing about them or retaliating about something, they're not going to tell you the truth, even though you're the best boss ever. So because who's going to go into jail if something goes wrong? It's you. Your number one concern should always be, are they telling me the truth?
Right. So foster an environment where they feel comfortable to be transparent, honest with you.
Even more than that, Darius.
Right.
You want to craft an environment where they don't feel comfortable, where you invite them to tell you the truth and to tell you what's not working.
Right.
What are we overlooking? Because chances are there's always something that you're overlooking. You want to invite it. That's what I mean. You have to make an effort to create a psychologically safe environment. Because feeling comfortable, I'm comfortable, but you know what? It's 6 o'clock. Who cares?
Yeah.
You want to ensure that every meeting ends with, what are we overlooking? What we're not saying? What is not being explored yet? What troubles are we overseeing? These kind of things, which might sound negative, but the truth is, especially at high stake type of meetings, you want to know all that.
Yeah.
So that they are happy, fulfilled, alive, it's a very important thing.
And if you're the leader, you're often not always seeing things up close and personal, whereas the rest of the team does. So you need everyone to be able to communicate that to you.
Exactly. And it's not about feeling comfortable. It's really about speaking up about what's not working. Because we have lots of examples in the corporate world of companies blowing up because they didn't see it coming. One of these was Volkswagen, you might remember many years ago. The boss was an old type of, old-fashioned leadership style, like the revenue must increase.
Right. That's it.
That kind of leadership
yeah.
is really dangerous because he imposed this on the team. I think it was 70s, 80s, something around that, perhaps, maybe 90s. He imposed a goal that was unreachable.
Right.
Maybe someone tried to say it, maybe they didn't because they knew the type of leader they had in front of them. Anyway, what happened is they lied and they did something that they shouldn't have done, and they kept doing it because these would have met the expectations in terms of revenue.
I see.
The thing is, I personally believe he genuinely didn't know.
Right.
And that is the trouble. So they find lateral solution, but they don't tell you, then who's going to go to jail?
Yeah. The guy at the top.
It's still your responsibility, even if they didn't tell you. Yes, but there's a clear reason why they didn't tell you.
Yeah.
So it's not a smart decision. But again, I think it all comes down to, why do I need to invite a contrarian opinion when everything is going well and everyone seems aligned and happy? Because you know how the brain works. And if they feel threatened by something, you literally are in trouble. So it's about understanding, and then on that understanding, building all the rest.
Right. And you speak about fulfillment at work. How do we know if we're fulfilled or if our team is fulfilled?
I think there are a lot of signals. Do they bring new ideas, collateral solutions? Do they express themselves? Or do they think as one group? I mean, if someone is fulfilled, it means they're expressing themselves. If they're really expressing themselves, they're bringing different gifts on the table. If they all kind of think in the same way, you never have different ideas. Is it possible that they are all think in the same way? Or they may have, can I say in English, homologated? No, maybe it's not the right word.
Suppressed what they were feeling.
Like group thinking is really dangerous. It's a little bit of what we said. It's dangerous because if someone sees something different, they don't say it. So first, if you notice this, that means something is not doing well. Fulfillment comes from self-expression. So if they are fulfilled, they're generally more positive, more contributing. You want more of that self-expression. You naturally want it more. So if you see that they are feeling lazy, for example, it's kind of useless giving them more money. That's generally the first reaction. Let's give him a promotion because maybe it's a great talent, but lazy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure if he's lazy. Chances are he might feel threatened by something. So your job is not to give more money into that, but maybe understanding and removing that threat. So by learning to see their behavior, asking questions, lots of questions, creating an environment where they tell you the truth, these are all elements that are telling you if they are fulfilled or not.
So making time to actually ask the questions. I think that's probably because I'm just applying it in my own business, and I think there even is a lack of that process in place to be like really stop all the day-to-day work, which can be quite overwhelming, and everyone's just dealing with what they need to deal with. But to actually be like, stop, you tell me, what do you think? Give me your honest opinion in a safe environment, to actually get that out. I think to almost implement a system like that or some process within your workflow could be useful then.
Exactly. And think about this. Fulfillment is an emotion. They're not going to give you signal of their emotion if they don't feel safe enough to express them. So that's why we say, I'm sure you've heard of that vulnerability is an important skill for a leader. Being able to feel and show vulnerability in front of others. If you do it, somehow you are signaling it's safe, you can do it too.
Right.
And fulfillment is an emotion. So if someone is performingly consistently high, chances are they are fulfilled. Otherwise, it wouldn't be sustainable. But if for a short amount of time, it can come from effort. You don't want top performance coming from effort. You want it to come from fulfillment, which implies effort, but coming from within, the thing that we said before.
From a natural feeling of being rather
Exactly,
than
where
I
intuition
have
is
to do.
part of the
Yeah.
job, and then they get into the state of flow. Now that you know what you know based on this conversation, I invite you to observe your team members. Do they get in the state of flow? Are they constantly looking at the watch? Do they contribute with collateral ideas? Do they see opportunities, or are they much more stuck in the problem? Because this is giving you signal that can help you rewire the environment.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm already thinking of some new practices I'm going to implement into my company. And that feeds into the next question. Actually, many people get stuck in jobs that they don't love. From your neuroscience lens, what's the very first step towards breaking free from being in a job which is not satisfying or not fulfilling, or you don't love and you don't feel your true self expressing itself?
I think the very first step is listening to this talk and
Right.
understand and internalize the concept of feeling alive.
Sure.
Your job is supposed to be the way that helps you feel alive, express yourself every day. If it doesn't, we need to look at something. What is that something? Is not the company, is not the salary, is not the job, is not the colleagues, is who am I, and how many of my gifts and values and vision am I expressing every day through this job? Because the way I see it, and now it's definitely like this for me now, I think you can see that it's not that I'm passionate about what I do. Of course I am.
Yeah.
It's way more than that. It's what keeps me studying a book until 3 a.m. I don't have to.
Yeah, it
I
blurs
just
the
want
lines
to.
of what your job is and who you are, right? So
Exactly.
not just be like a clock in, clock out, and now I'm going to have my fun afterwards. It's like your whole life should be fun, right? So you're spending how many hours a day multiplied by how many years doing that. So to tap into enjoying that part is more important than almost enjoying your hobbies that you squeeze in at the end of the day or the
For
weekends.
which you won't have energy most
Yeah,
likely.
because you're already spent on
you've driven
doing a
your
stressful job that you didn't enjoy. Or
Exactly. It's such an effort. I know because I've been there. It's such an effort. I didn't have much time. I have a lot of energy, so I still managed to have my happy life after 6 p.m. But very often I didn't have that energy. Because when you are switched off, detached, and working as a human doing for 8 hours a day, it's not that when you go home, you're full of life.
No.
That stays with you and it impacts your relationships.
Yeah.
And then even more as a human being, your relationship with the world. We are in the situation where we are because someone feels unfulfilled, obviously.
Yeah.
And there are other problems as well, like narcissism and so on. But the idea is if we, at least half of the population, at least in the Western world, was feeling fulfilled, we would have many, many less problems.
Sure.
The thing is, we know exactly what's the problem, but we don't know what is the solution. And the solution is finding a career where you can express yourself. Or as I said in my TED Talk, is where you can bring who you are into what you do. Your job nowadays, and I speak about this in 2025, maybe 30 years ago wasn't the same. But today, with the variety of job and sectors that we have, there's definitely someone willing to pay for what you bring into the world. But it's your job to find them, it's not their job to find you. How do you do that? You do exactly what I did. You rediscover who you are. You need to take the time and you need to have a system to rediscover your gifts. Then you bring your gifts into an Excel file. It's as simple as that. It's a very long list. And then you have 2-3 different options. Imagine if it was me, one would have been being a historian, continuing as a web developer, or becoming a digital marketing expert. And then you try to match these gifts. Like, would this job tap into that gift? Honor that gift, honor that value, honor that vision? Yes, no, maybe. That's the tool that I use with my clients. Yes, no, maybe. Yes, no, maybe. And then in the end, you will see. And I would have seen it for myself that being a historian, sorry, Bruna, passion, yes, But feeling alive is another story.
Yeah.
So
And we shouldn't settle.
as I said, my brain
Yeah.
is very structured, so this
Yeah.
might not work for everyone. But it can be as simple as that. Putting on one column who you really are, and you need to go deep. Don't stop at the first 3-4 things that come to mind. You really need to go deep. And there's a tool on my website that can help with that. Go deep, make that list, then analyze the different options. Yes, no, maybe. That gives you an idea. And then you can explore more. If you don't have an answer to some of these match, it's okay. Explore, shadow someone, ask around.
Ask what people think of us. What do you think my talents are?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they might not know how you feel when you use that gift, but they have a very interesting perspective. So there are a lot of different exercises that you can do to make that list. But the point is get that list and choose based on who you are. And the same you should do it when you choose who to marry,
Right.
what country you should live in, and all these other, very important decisions in your life that can impact the quality of your
Sure.
life. So decisions should be made on who you are, not what you think. So what you think is by definition limited.
Yeah.
But who you are, that's subjective.
Okay, so to wrap up now, what would be one practical tip that listeners could take away and start to apply in their life today that would help them to increase their own sense of self-awareness and help them to find out who their authentic self is and then express it in the world?
Very good question. I think the easiest and quickest thing to do, especially for people who are not used to this type of work. I mean, for those who are used to it, of course, journaling is always the best thing. But if you're not used to it and you want something quick, is just keeping track, noticing when there's a movement of energy in your body, and have a simple scheme. It can be on the phone, it can be on your cloud. It's just a simple scheme where you collect information like, right now I feel this way. With no judgment, just checking and asking what might have triggered this and what might this mean in my life or in my leadership role or whatever. Just getting into the habit. All the rest comes afterward. But the most important thing is getting into the habit of feeling what is happening, noticing it, taking notes. Taking notes is vital. Just noticing is not enough. It's vital because, as I said, after a while, you will start reading it. Imagine after a month you've done that, you start seeing the patterns. And you might realize, every time I talk to that person, I feel drained.
Right.
But I still have to talk to her. Yeah, maybe I'll do it at the end of the day. So at the beginning of the day, I'll still have good energy for the other team members. Something like that. So it's about managing what you have and what you have to do, but in a way that allows you to be at your best. So noticing the energy fluctuations, or also noticing, I just went into the state of flow. I thought it was half an hour, actually it was 2 hours and 15.
Right, yeah.
And then what might have happened here? Bruna said it might have been a gift. What gift might have been here? Just write it down. If there's no container to collect information, that information is gone.
Right.
It's a shame. Same with the insight. Have a file where every time you have an insight, you just stop everything else you're doing. Generally, it's shower, walking the dog, washing the dishes, these kind of things. Stop everything. Just write it down. Engage with it. Talk about it. Explain it to others. Just stay with it. Because at some point, the meaning will be clearer. So I would say that's probably the quickest thing to do for someone who's not used to this type of inner work.
That's very useful. Just to be aware, just to notice, I think, is a huge first step. And especially about our own bodies that most people are very disconnected from because everything's looking outwards all the time. So look back inwards. I think that's
and
very
less
useful.
smartphone, if I can add.
Yeah,
I know
less
that's
smartphone.
A tough one.
Yeah.
Also because of the ways our life is built and business is built, but less smartphone because every time you're using the smartphone, you're not rebuilding that bridge with yourself. That bridge is not there. It needs to be rebuilt. Every minute you spend there, it's a minute you're not spending into your inner world. And I know it's very challenging.
Let the boredom come and feel how
and
you feel
especially
inside.
for kids, it's really important that they start feel bored because in that boredom, there's a wealth of precious information for their life. So yes, that's a problem we didn't have being so busy as teenagers, yet we managed to get detached and work as human doing anyway. Because the thing is, after the first mountain that we said you climb in that way, then you look back and you realize, where was I? Well, there's still another mountain. You're not retiring from your life at 40. You have a second mountain, but that's a mountain you want to climb as a human being, as you being you, where you choose. But you don't do this if at the top of the first mountain, you don't take the time to notice all these and translate these into a roadmap for the future. So that's a very precious moment. And it starts with just noticing, taking note, and maybe looking at the patterns. It's as simple as that, the beginning.
Wow. Very, very helpful. Well, thanks, Bruna, for today. This has been really insightful. Lots of great insights and lots of tips that I'm going to be implementing myself in my life, with my relationships and my business. And I'd love to have you back later when your book is written, which I believe you're writing now. Could you please let listeners know how they can contact you, get more information, get some of your writings, and because you've done other podcasts and stuff as well, where can they find you? And how might somebody who has a company might want to hire you contact you?
Thanks for asking. So there's a wealth of information, mostly free on my website. There's a lot of article and content, which is www.brunadepalo.com.
We'll put link in the description as well.
In the everything section, there's literally everything from webinar and podcast and articles. For a long time, Darius, we didn't know each other at that time yet. But for 1 year and something, I had a series on LinkedIn. Every Monday, I was posting a fact about the brain and what that means in practice. And it's called Brain Fact Monday. Now, all these articles are on the website. There's really plenty of stuff. As I said, mostly free. There are some masterclasses as well for those who want to initiate this journey on their own. Like, okay, I can't afford to pay a coach and I don't want to do it on my own. What's the alternative? Well, there's a masterclass with the workbook I use with my clients, with all the exercises to do, so that can help rediscover yourself, rediscover your gifts, and that can be the first step of the journey. There's an online course as well on how to do these in a very structured way. Probably the most important thing is the book, which is not out yet. It might take a while. But what I'm doing on the website, you can subscribe the newsletter, but also the updates for the book.
Okay.
So I send specific updates about the book, and before it's released, I release some nuggets, some golden nuggets here and there. So it's kind of doing the journey together. And because I haven't finished yet, I'd love to have people's contribution. What are their challenges? What do they think? What they have experienced? What alternative tools they have? I mean, as I said, I don't know everything. So with this interaction with my readers, I can enrich the book as well. So it's just on the My Book page on the website. And the way companies can eventually hire me, I'm a concrete woman, so I like doing more than talking, even though I feel we talked a lot today. Yeah. But when it comes to business, I'd rather do stuff. So what I do is I offer mini workshop to organizations, which is a small version of what I do, so that generally HR, the CEO, or top decision makers can feel how it feels bringing this approach in the organization, and then based on that, deciding. It's a free mini workshop. It's much easier than just going there and present myself and say what I do. And I don't know, I'd rather do it and let them feel it.
Sure.
So they can just be in touch and, we can talk about the challenges and schedule a mini workshop that can see how these would work in action in their organization.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thanks for coming and joining us today.
Thank you so much, Darius. It's been a great conversation and I loved our energy here. So it's been great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay. See you soon.
Thank you.